Darcy,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
so moved.
Jennifer?
Public, yes,
Can we do the same? I mean, I think Mark says we can do the same way we do at the meeting where you just ask us all to either approve or disapprove, then ask for nays, and if it's by unanimous consent, you can just put that in minutes.
oh,
Yeah,
you
I
mean like,
checked with, I'm sorry, Jennifer. I
no, go
apologize.
ahead.
I checked with, I was actually having a conversation because this came up at several board meetings. And so I spoke with Melissa Huey. And so, we're learning a lot about remote meetings. And the question was, if there's a motion and a second, and you're doing the meeting remotely and you're recording it, if to expedite the process rather than going through each name,
Yeah.
you can have everybody unmute. You can do the yays, you can do the nays, and then however the vote went down, as long as the chair says that publicly and it's annotated in the record, you're fine. So it just,
Okay,
you don't have to go down through each member each time.
okay,
It just needs to be really transparent and
Yep.
be able to have a recorded record of how people voted.
excellent. And I will
Thanks.
do that. Thank you. Public comment. I had none sent to me.
I checked with Selena before the meeting and there was nothing received at this time.
Okay. New business, principals report.
I'm on. So it's good to see everybody. I'll get to just some details about the case and sort of, what we learned in a minute. But before I get started, I did want to start because I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate, the teachers in our school, our district as a whole, and parents. I think one thing that has been overlooked in terms of that, I've been to a lot of meetings and people talking about, loss, whether academic loss in kids, and not recognizing or forgetting that, we're in a pretty good place here as compared to our neighbors. Our kids are in school 5 days a week. That's not common elsewhere. I work with a person from the state on math issues, and she's a coach for us. And she has some colleagues that work in Southern Maine. And we had a conversation in February. And she said, I have a friend who's a second grade teacher. And this was as of February. They only met her second graders 35 times. We are seeing kids 5 days a week, and they are moving along, and it's to the great work of the staff, here and across the district, and to parents, making sure they're, following all the rules and helping support their kids come here. That's an amazing thing. And I wanted to make sure that I said that, publicly. We're in a great place. We're doing great stuff here by having kids here 5 days a week. And that's really important to understand. It's a heavy lift, but it's worth it. And I wanted to make sure that folks heard that from me and my teachers hear that from me. I try to say it in small little groups, and I think I needed to say it out loud and publicly. I think it's really important because, it is a little different from our peers within our state and also within the nation. So it's just really important that people are working hard, but it's a great thing that our kids are here 5 days a week. So I wanted to make sure that I said that. And so, as you know, just to sort of heads up, I did share with everybody that we had our first positive case. Crystal and I had done, Nurse Crystal and I had done 2 sandbox sessions before that. And it's kind of funny. You do your sandbox sessions and you have everything in place, but you continue to learn things when it really happens. And we're learning. I know that the CDC, the investigator that we hooked up with after getting all the information out said, you guys did great. And we're like, thank you. But there's definitely some things that we would do a little bit differently. But I think all in all, it went really well. Probably for me, the biggest change would be, once you start walking around and kids are leaving classrooms and you haven't talked to them, the rumor mill starts. So probably the first thing after creating your list is for me to go around and have the conversation with classrooms that are affected, and not to say, yeah, we had a case and we're working our plan. And this is why we do the things we do. And it gave me a chance to talk about the 3 Ws and why are we wearing masks? Why are we social distancing? Why are we washing our hands? What does it mean? I hear contact tracing, that word comes up all the time. Well, it's about casting a net and trying to gather up all the possible contacts to make sure it doesn't spread to anybody else, to keep people safe. And it allowed me to do that with all of the classes and talk with them. And that's something that I probably should have done first, while Nurse Crystal and other folks who are on our response team sort of gathered our lists and double checked it and matched siblings and did all of that. But it was really good, once I finally got that part of the day and I did that with everybody, you could just sort of feel everybody kind of relax and be like, okay, yeah, that's why we're doing this. Since it is close to the April break, I mean, we are having families choose to keep their kids out for the rest of the week, for their safety. So that has occurred here. But we'll, keep on going until through till Friday, and then we'll have our April break. But I can't say enough about Nurse Crystal. Cindy Lambert was part of the team that helped out. And certainly Nurse Stephanie, not Nurse Stephanie, sometimes she is. Stephanie, our administrative assistant, helping to, make sure we, got through the process and I identified who we needed to and made phone calls. So, that was really good to have that team in place and to have the file with all the letters and everything ready to go. That really helped out. So the work that we did early on as a district to prepare ourselves left us in good stead. So I wanted to be able to share that. All right, now to the meat of my report. If you haven't, does anybody have any questions about that part?
No, and thank you for all your hard work from you and the entire Trenton school body. I mean, you guys really rocked it with this little hiccup right here. You really did.
Incredible, yeah.
I was hoping to get by.
Yeah.
I was going to brag at the end, but now, can't do that. Enrollment has pretty much has stayed the same. We had a shift, but I identified that earlier of a person from MDI to Ellsworth, but you can see sort of those numbers there in high school. No new enrollees or unenrolled students. Kindergarten screening is coming up, and so we have approximately right now about 14 kiddos. I'm guessing based on our enrollment from pre-K last year, we may be up around 16 as we get closer to that. I'll talk a little bit about K screening when I get to that part of the report. We have a new custodian again, and Richard Dow, who's coming to us from the construction field and had worked in heating and plumbing for years, and is coming to us and had his first day yesterday. So I apologize to him for all the not having the chance to really spend time with him. And he came back this morning. It was awesome. And he's very excited. I'm very excited. I think it's a really good match. And so it's great to have him here.
He's battle tested, right, Mike?
Richard. Battle tested now. He's battle tested. As I wrote, I have 2 ed techs who are furthering, their education. One of them in special education, and another one going on for their master's. And so those 2 folks are going to finish the year with us. So, ad has gone out for 2 new ed techs. I wanted you guys to be aware of that. For what's going on, we had our March Madness, and again, I'll thank Mrs. Baldridge with the help of some other teachers put that theme month together. So there's a little something to do every day to sort of help brighten up March, as early spring is always sort of a wash of doldrums and excitement. And so I think that was really exciting, and we ended on a Math Mania day where all kids got playing cards, and our math team put together games for folks to share. And then the last day was a readathon, and that went really well. So that was exciting. In March, we started our whole school morning meetings and doing those by Zoom. So I stood in the cafeteria, in the gym like I normally would do, and it looked like we were all together, but a link went out on YouTube, and so everyone participated. We did a mindful minute together, and then I was able to sort of go through the general morning meeting process, which is talking about things that we're doing, reviewing the MDI promise, recognizing students and staff for their accomplishments. And I think I did a little lesson on gratitude that day, and then moving on with our day. And so when we come back from vacation, we'll have our April morning meeting, and then we'll have one in June to wrap up the year. And the kids really enjoy that because then they get to have their birthdays identified. I did walk around and give everybody who had a birthday from September till March their birthday bracelets, the ones that we missed. So that was really exciting for the students. Transition to high school. The students have had opportunities to do open houses at Ellsworth and at Bar Harbor, and at MDI, the guidance counselor, Mark Kerrigan, has met with students this week who are attending. There are 2 students who are attending Ellsworth High School, and we had Dan here doing his presentation with his staff, the principal, and then parents are individually calling the guidance department there to set up times with them to pick classes. We had intramural floor hockey as sort of that shoulder season between sports to allow our middle school students. Since 5th and 6th grade is a pod, they were able to sort of be together and do on one day. They did floor hockey on Tuesdays, 7th and 8th did it on Fridays. And we had Nurse Crystal, Marissa Boucher, who's our special ed teacher, who works with the 5th, 6th group. And so she is a former hockey player, so she kind of coached that, and that was fun for her. Kat Dow and Crystal did both, and Kat Dow helped out with the 7th and 8th graders on that day, so that was great. I put in the notes, the MDI promise, and I put a picture of, I had shared with a bunch of students the ability to do this, and for various reasons they couldn't make it. It was during the February break to take pictures, but we had 2 students, a 7th grader and 8th grader, and you can see their posters that right now are hanging in the cafeteria next to our Pride in the Pack, and then you've probably seen them around if you've been on the island or coming on and off in Trenton. Our students showing their pride and doing what they need to be safe. And then I listed the promise there. And I've been highlighting it in the newsletter for a couple of weeks now. And I highlighted it at our morning meeting. Kindergarten screening, that is taking place on Wednesday the 28th when we return. We are utilizing our gym, and so all of the stations will be set up there. Outside the gym, that's where parents will come, and the staff will be, Stephanie will be there to any details that parents will need, and that's where Mrs. Eddy will do her little interviews with staff, and then kids will come in and then go through the stations in the gym. This year we are using the dial for this, the speed dial. We usually use the full dial. The speed dial is sort of a quicker version of that assessment. Part of that is just, it's going to be odd in the way that we do it. So sort of the speed that process up for the kids. If we do notice anything through the scores where we have to dig deeper, then we will do that. But as part of the kindergarten screening is child find for special education. That's why you do it. And so if we need to dig a little deeper, then we will do that. So, we're looking forward to that screening and to invite the little ones into our gym and have them go around to the station. I put information on the immunization update. I know that has been talked about at the AOS board meeting. Crystal has already identified those parents, and she's working closely with them. And the biggest deal is just to, help people recognize, and I put at the end of the note, is that, we're going to work with families and providers, and if folks are on the path, and we'll work with them to make sure that they are in school and start that process early. So, we're already on top of that for next year. I listed the dates for our community forums. I'll come back to that in a little bit. Parent-teacher conferences went really well, and we did those last week. 7th and 8th grade are doing theirs this week. And so, those went really well. I put a piece in there about parent self-care in terms of, we've been working hard with self-care and our staff, and working with Laura Plenty, and I've had that information in the principal's report. But the folks in Juliet, this is Trauma Informed Practices Collaboratory that put this together with a recognition, and this is something that parents could use. They put something together for staff, and adults, and we had thought that it would be great for parents too, because we're all feeling a little stressed. So that has gone out through the newsletter. Back to the forums. Those are coming up. Our first one is Thursday, and it'll be sort of held like a webinar. I have the links. I got those from Josh, and I'll be sending those out tomorrow to make sure that they go out. They'll be on our website, and I will make sure they get out for other community members not attached to the school, so that they have the ability to log in. The way that it'll run will be sort of like a webinar, similar to the high school. Board members present, and myself and Markin will be sort of as panelists, and everybody else will be muted when they come on. Folks will be able to ask questions through the chat, and Jennifer has agreed to be the person to sort of ask the questions as they come in after we go through the presentation. My sense is that I'll sort of do a budget presentation like I have done in the past, that we did a couple of years ago. And I know there'll be questions out there from community members about things that they've read in the papers. So, we'll address those to the best of our ability, and we'll go from 6 to 7. And then we'll have the second one on Thursday, the 6th. And we'll go through that same process. Extracurricular, baseball, softball, and track. Right now for us, track is on hold, softball is on hold, and baseball is happening. So, we are combining with Connors Emerson for baseball and softball. We have been able to secure a bus for our baseball and softball team when they go down to Connors Emerson to practice, actually at the Y field. And then we have a bus that can drive those players back here to school afterwards, so parents don't have to drive to Bar Harbor to pick up their kids. That will start in earnest after the break. Track we did start, but with our contact tracing, our track coach, which is, is out for a little while, so we'll take a break. Softball is out for a while because of contact tracing at Connors Emerson, but we'll start up after the break. We did have some softball practices here, which was nice because we have a large enough gym. During that first week, the fields were kind of icky, and Connors Emerson didn't have room for 2 teams to do that. And so the softball team came here for those practices that week. But now the fields are all set, and after break, it'll be all outside. Student recognition. Ariana Yin won the If I Led My Community Essay Contest. She was 3 winners through the state that was run through the Maine Municipal Association. That was an extra project that Autumn Demain, who was teaching 8th grade at the time that the MMA sent that out, put that out to students, and 2 students in our 7th grade took up the challenge, and Ari did a great job on her If I Led My Community, talking about the ability for kids to be out, be free range, the importance of sidewalks so that community members can get out and about and feel safe. And so that was really cool. And then at the end of her essay, she talked about the importance of respect within a community. And, I thought that was, it was a really nice essay to read. So I went to the select board. Fred gave the award to her at that meeting, and she read her essay out loud. So it was a really nice evening for her. Staff and recognition. Snow Ross is one of the finalists for Hancock Teacher of the Year. She has an interview coming up in that process. And as I wrote, in our hearts and minds, she is Teacher of the Year. So regardless of what happens, she is our Teacher of the Year. She's very excited, and we have gone back and forth. And so I'm excited for her. She deserves it. She has been phenomenal all the years here and continues just to grow as an educator and also as a community member. I think, when you think about Teacher of the Year in a community, she's more than just, in the front of the room working, facilitating learning for kids, and for us here, that learning extends to our garden and our greenhouse and our outdoor education. She has been, strong in that and on the leadership team. So, I can't think of a more deserving purpose to be National Teacher of the Year in my estimation. And any other news? Some grants, we've received a couple grants in terms of our gardens and greenhouse and outdoor play areas. So actually Courtney Shusheim and Rachel Noble have worked hard on putting those grants together. One of them is to help buy materials to fully develop an outdoor learning space that we're looking at, putting more benches and a lean-to and installing our outdoor chalkboard over by where the story chair used to be near the swings. And then the other grant is sort of like starter seed money for enhancing the play area with some more environmentally playground type of situations. And so, there's a team of students that we're working with to focus on that and move that process along. Last year, they came and met with you all at the beginning of the year prior to COVID and things but they're still together and still interested. And now we have a little money to help shepherd that along a little bit. Facilities and transportation, the things that will be going out to bid will be our mowing from grounds care, the library roof and the 3-5 wing, and bus transportation. So those things will be things coming up. For academic updates, summer school, we did receive $26,000 from the state of Maine through Title I reallocation funds. And so I have my list from teachers and we'll be refining that and then working with teachers and staff to really have small targeted instruction. It'll look a little bit different. Our pods will be smaller. Part of that is COVID related, but part of that is we learned last year when we did remote summer school that it was those smaller groupings and definitely kids participating over 90% in attendance that made gains during summer school. So we want to try to replicate that, but do it in person. And I have a group of teachers who are interested in that. And so, I'm looking forward to fleshing that plan out a little bit. And then I'll have Julie do her report after the principal's report, but I was thinking we would do it in academic updates. In professional development, we use the Eureka Math program, and they have a program called Equip, which is a tool that helps identify where gaps are as teachers are coming up through modules. And we're getting some training on that on Thursday. And then when we come back from vacation, teachers would have practiced using it. And then we have a meeting to work out, well, how do you shape your lessons knowing that you have some kids that may need to what we call sort of backfill. One of the things that's unique about Eureka is the designers knew that there'd be some customization depending on your school and your district, how many days you could teach and how much time you have to teach it. And they work through that process of how you can incorporate what kids need to work on and still continue to move forward. So there's going to be 2 sessions on that coming up. And we continue to work with Laura on our social emotional learning. We are now moving in. We've worked through several sessions on adult care, and now we're moving into what our plan needs to be for us as a school. And one of the first things that we're working on is what our vision for social emotional learning is. And the leadership team has worked on bringing teachers and kids along. That was something that Lana helped us realize, to come up with a vision. So we're working on a process for visioning that involves staff and students as our next steps as we sort of move forward through that. And that's the principal's report.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. I have on here review correspondence from attorney, but you said Julie has some things to say?
Yeah, I was going to have Julie go under the academic, I keep calling it economic, under the academic portion of my report, that she would do the mid-year data check-in.
Floor is yours, Julie. I don't think your mic is on.
No, I think I'm okay now, but I
Okay,
don't know if Josh is listening, if he wants to put up the presentation or if he wants me to do it. We can discuss this. Let me try and see if I
Okay.
can. Oh, no, he disabled the screen sharing. So, Josh, are you there?
Yes, I can do it, but I just made you co-host too if you'd like to do it. It's up to you.
All right, I can do it. Let me see if I can do it anyway. Okay, so let's do this in presentation mode. Can people, whoops. That's not what I want to show first. Can people see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a mini version of some of what you saw district-wide last night, and this is specific to Trenton. So this is by grade level, what Trenton's mean was in math on the NWEA, and then this is the NW in comparison with the NW winter mean before COVID. So this was the pre-COVID mean. So this is a pattern that we've seen at several of the schools. You have a couple of grades that are slightly below, okay, and a couple of grades that are more than slightly below. That indicates a group that maybe we need to put some more resources towards, some more supports. You have a couple of groups, if they're green, they're right in the same, they're within the standard deviation. And then you have two groups in 7 and 8 that are actually above the standard deviation in math. So it's really important for you to see this. Again, you know, we have kids that definitely need some additional support. And we have some kids and families who were part of the virtual academy, and then, you know, that wasn't working so well for them. And we've worked with Mike very closely to get them back in school. And but we have a lot of kids who are doing just fine. And I think that's really, really the takeaway that you need to see from here. And looking at reading, again, you've got your 3 classes that are doing okay. Your grade 6, that's just not a strong class for reading right now. And that's where we're going to have to put some additional resources. And then grade 7 and 8, again, seem to be doing fine vis-a-vis the national norm. This is growth data, and I think you have some things to be really proud of here. The turquoise, if you know, I always say, you know, 70% to above at the size of the school. The Trenton is, you know, 2 or 3% can be an arm or a leg. So, you know, we try to say if it's within 3 percentile points of 70, then you're talking about 70, basically. And so you can see that some of the math work that Mike was just talking about, where whole school has really engaged with this math work, plus you have a full-time math coach, an interventionist, and everybody focused on math, and you can see what the results are. Because in the fall, if you recall, we did see some flattening out in the area of math. And you can see the kinds of growth rates that we're getting now. Reading, we have had some places across the district where less than 40% are showing that they are on track to meet their end of year growth target. Now, I'm not worried about it for two reasons. One is teachers know, and they're working on it. And things like the readathon, and a lot of it is also cultural, because if you're in a home where there's not a lot of reading, and you didn't do a lot of reading during the pandemic while you were out of school, then you may have lost some ground and some habit of reading. But I fully expect that these will be higher by the end of the year. You can see the comparative for the year before COVID was at 58% in both. You can see we're above that in math already. And I think, again, that the reading will come up. Here's my famous quartile picture. I'm dedicating this to you, Gary. And again, for those of you who are looking at this from left to right, you can see math. Again, this is under the 50th percentile, and the reading 53% up underneath the 50th percentile is also a really good sign. Those are high. They mean that your support services at Trenton are working well. And I think that's really important, because Mike has worked really hard with the teachers on RTI and on supports and on making sure that special education is aligned with the work that's happening in classrooms, and that's all paying off. And you can see that there's fairly consistent across the quartiles in terms of growth. So then we took a long-term look at Trenton's 7th grade to just see sort of what's happened during the pandemic versus what happened before. And you can see they started, that the Trenton reading started way above the norm in reading in yellow. And although there was a dip between the fall and the winter, that group is still above the mean. Remember, this is a pre-COVID mean. Mm-hmm. For math, you can see this group started out again at the mean and then went quite a bit above the mean. Again, some leveling out between the fall and winter. I think these have been strange times to go to school, but I'm not worried about this group. They're not like cascading into a place that's a problem. And the 8th grade class, and people were asking about 7 and 8 because they were thinking, are these kids going to be ready for high school? Are they going to just be completely not ready? I think they're going to be ready. Your 8th grade is a very strong class, looking at the math line in green and the math NWEA line in orange, and then looking at the Trenton 8th grade reading in blue, and the yellow line for the national. And you can see that they're doing just fine as a group. I think the challenge always is with the small classes that you have is, a mean is a mean is a mean is a mean. Even a small class has a really, really wide spectrum of learners, and there's going to be learners who are going to need extra support, and there's going to be learners that are going to need extra challenge. And I just want to say hats off to the Trenton teachers and to Mike and his team for really working hard to make sure that those needs for support and needs for challenge are being met. I think you can take a sigh of relief if you're worried about learning loss absolutely trashing the kids, because I don't think it's happening. So that's my report.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we will go to the review of the correspondence from the attorney. I wanted to read the attorney's letter so that if there were people who hadn't seen it yet, we'll be able to hear it tonight. We had asked Mark to get in touch with our attorney about the petition that was brought to the select board meeting. So I will read his response. You have asked about the legal effect of a petition submitted by Trenton voters to the Trenton Board of Selectmen regarding withdrawal from the AOS 91. As explained below, what the petitioners are requesting does not follow any existing legal process for withdrawal from the AOS. The petition requests that the Trenton Board of Selectmen place the following question to the next town meeting. Shall the Trenton School Committee and the Trenton Board of Selectmen appoint a committee to draft a plan for withdrawal from the AOS 19, and said committee submit said plan to the Maine Department of Education for approval. And if said plan is approved by the Department of Education, present said plan to the voters of the town of Trenton for approval. The petition seemingly follows a statutory process for withdrawal from a regional school unit, C 20-A MRS 1466, part of the Chapter 103-A, Subchapter 2. Notably, however, Section 1461-B, governing AOSs, makes clear that the regional school unit withdrawal process does not apply to AOSs. Withdrawal of a family member entity, notwithstanding Chapter 103-A, Subchapter 2, for an alternative organizational structure approved by the commissioner and approved by the voters, the withdrawal provision for member entities that were adopted as part of the reorganization plan under Section 3 and interlocal agreement under Title 30-A, Chapter 115, govern the withdrawal of a member entity. Rather, withdrawal from an AOS is governed by the AOS reorganization plan and the interlocal agreement. Unfortunately, neither the AOS 91 reorganization plan nor the interlocal agreement address withdrawal of an AOS member. Section 16 of the interlocal agreement provides for termination of the interlocal agreement. Number 16, termination of interlocal agreement. Unless otherwise provided by law, this interlocal agreement may be terminated upon approval by the Maine Commissioner of Education of a plan of termination prepared by the AOS School Committee or by the school committees of one or more member school units, and therefore approved by the voters of the AOS or the voters of one or more member school units within the AOS. As may
Wait,
be.
pause, sorry. It's not therefore, it's thereafter, and I think that's a key word, and you want to get that right.
Oh, yes, I apologize. Thank you. Thereafter, approved by the voters of the AOS or the voters of one or more member school units within the AOS, as may be provided in the plan of termination approved by the commissioner. In theory, the AOS could be terminated and reconstituted without one or more of its members. Another pathway would be for the AOS School Committee to amend the interlocal agreement to include a withdrawal process. The AOS School Committee has this authority in Section 6, parentheses V, of the interlocal agreement. V, oversee the administration of this interlocal agreement and, as deemed necessary from time to time, propose amendments to this interlocal agreement for approval by the voters of the member school units. The proposed amendment to the interlocal agreement would require voter approval within the AOS. The amended interlocal agreement would also be subject to commissioner disapproval pursuant to 30-A MRS 2205. Although there may be other creative solutions to reorganizing the AOS, the petition by the Trenton's voters do not follow a legal pathway for Trenton to withdraw from the AOS. Thank you. Yours truly, Greg Ein. Mark?
I'll be brief, Jennifer. I think so. I've hemmed and hawed in terms of how to respond to this, but I think in short, we've had legal opinion. We've sought legal experts. I have personally spoken to the Commissioner of Education about this in a very neutral way. So I want to add one piece. The Commissioner of Education, and I'm not speaking for her, I'm paraphrasing, would certainly never not look at a recommendation or a request. But in short, if a path or for withdrawal by any citizen group or any entity did not flow through the school board, the duly elected body to represent the schools, the students, That's a red flag, number one. Number two, if there is a defining document, which there is, the interlocal agreement, and there is statute reference, that's also a red flag if those boxes aren't checked. It's unfortunate that the town has chosen not to seek legal counsel to see if, I guess, do a check and balance against what the school committee's legal counsel has done, but it's not just the superintendent's recommendation or the principal's recommendation or how people may feel or not feel about the issue. So you have to follow the rules. And at the end of the day, the rules have been defined through the interlocal agreement. And that's why we pay our attorneys to make sure that we don't misstep. I don't want to engage in the politics of what the select board doesn't do or does do. That's not my domain. I can speak as a former city councilor and say that there were many times when I sat in that chair that we would take advice or recommendations from the CEO. In that position, it would be the city manager, but I think it's really prudent, as the Trenton School Board has done, to seek legal counsel, to make sure that we don't misstep, to say that the business of the people is being done well and correctly. So I hope that this issue can get resolved, but at the end of the day, I think what the attorney has recommended and the path that the school committee has followed is there is one way to withdraw from the AOS, and that pathway has to follow through the school board or the school committee. Thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to say, because I was reading the minutes from the select board meeting, one of the questions that was posed by a citizen was, well, who would sue? And of course, they immediately went to the superintendent, the principal, such and such. And, you know, anybody can sue because of this issue when it's not legal. It could be another school member that's in the AOS. It could be just an average citizen who's very upset about what's going on. So I just want to make clear that, you know, this is opening up the town to anybody suing, not the superintendent's office, although the superintendent's office could, but, you know, it could happen from somebody who doesn't even live in Trenton because it affects the AOS. And the other question that was said was, you know, do they not want to work to find savings? We work daily to find savings, to combine with other schools for ordering things and you know, just a myriad of things that we share. And we're not here to raise taxes and spend everybody's money willy-nilly. We try so hard and to make those savings happen. And they do, and we will get more savings as we find other ways that we can save with other schools. And so I have no issues working with anybody to try to find savings within the AOS. This is just not the pathway. This is just separating a town. It's creating problems, and it's really sad.
Jennifer, may I add one quick thing?
Yes.
I have to say this because this is my last stop, and I am departing as superintendent for all the right reasons, my family and my health. But I will say this, I've served for nearly 40 years as a teacher in many capacities and served as a public servant. This is not personal, but at the end of the day, for the 5 years that I've been privileged to serve as superintendent, and I serve 11 boards, and I serve 45 board members and a board of trustees. It has not been reciprocal in terms of trying to sit down and resolve financial issues. We continue not to have collaboration. We continue to reach out and want to work collaboratively, which is what we should be doing to find that balance. And that exists in every single community within the AOS. We have warrant committees, we have budgets. Nancy Thurlow and I work with 11 different budgets and audits. We have no problems in any of our communities. Excuse me, we have challenges that we work collaboratively through. We have asked, here's what we have. The reality is when we go, if we're talking about money or we're talking about budgets, we have one opportunity per year with the select board or the budget committee. And I won't go into the details of the budget committee, but it's pretty much a one and done shot. That's not okay. That's not collaboration. That's not how we work together. And it's an observation. I say that with all due respect because municipal matters are not my domain. I don't work for the municipal officers. I work for the school committee. But I would humbly say to the citizens and to the people out there that I think the citizens deserve collaboration among school officials, among school leaders, and among municipal leaders. It does not have to be this way. It should be civil. It should be respectful. It should be collaborative. We should be able to agree to disagree, but we should do what is best for our children and for our citizens. We should do that collaboratively. There is too much discourse in our country right now. There is too much disrespect. Doesn't need to be that way. There is a path forward. The kids and the people of Trenton have been a valued member of the AOS. And I think many of the questions we're talking about have been discussed widely. And you can go to the citizens of Trenton as to why they chose to become part of the AOS. I think they see the value and they've seen the benefits. And the AOS has seen that in a reciprocal way. We value the students of Trenton and the community of Trenton. I hope there is a path forward, but that path forward does need to be defined by civility, respect, and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Absolutely. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the review of Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance rates.
We all know, if I may, Jennifer, may I?
Yes.
So I sent to the board the projections. I will say good news for all the citizens and all the members of the AOS. I want to give a shout out to Nancy and everybody because I think the vision of us taking a look at combining our rates as a district have paid huge dividends, savings, if you will. The savings are really, I guess I want to quantify it as when we put in insurance numbers, we put a placeholder in there. And that's exactly what it is. It's not money we would spend, it's a placeholder. Nancy and I think prior to my coming here, would always recommend at least a 10% because it can flow or fluctuate that way. Tracking it early on in the budget process, the school committee, all the school committees supported reducing that because we thought we would be okay with an 8% this year. And that ultimately was reflected in the rates that we received. I think the single rating has helped us maintain our rates. I also think that even though we can't drill down into wellness, I think there are certainly going to be benefits down the road in that. And I also think the shift in to the HRA, the health reimbursement account, which has been very beneficial to our employees, and it's resulted in savings, which is good for the district and for local boards. I think those all continue to pay dividends. And I will say that going down that road, many school boards across the state, superintendents are looking at what we're doing because it has worked for our employees. It's working for our board. So you are seeing the rates coming in at flat. And what Nancy and I have recommended, and we know that times are tough for everybody, and in particular, right now, we want to be paying attention to our budget in Trenton, but Nancy and I would recommend retaining at least 4% of the remaining 8% of the figure that I provided to you. And the rationale for that is to make sure that we leave room for any people that may depart or come, or any plan changes that may result in family status, whatnot. It just gives the board the ability to navigate that. And the reality is that money can't be spent in any other ways. And if the money is not spent, it it will turn to carry forward. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, Jennifer. I did provide it to the board. It's a significant amount, but we would recommend retaining at least half of that figure. Michael, do you have it?
Not at my fingertips. Oh,
I'll pull it up in a second, but Jennifer, the reality would be that with the savings, recommending at least retaining 50% of that, which would equate to 4%.
Yeah.
For
Is that enough?
I think it's prudent, Jennifer. Nancy and I both think it's prudent. The short answer is yes. I also think it is the right thing to do to mitigate any potential raise in taxes or funds to support the school.
Yeah.
I think it's the right thing to do, and it puts us in good stead. But that ultimately is it's a recommendation, and it's the school committee's decision.
All right, I have your spreadsheet up.
Yep.
And Trenton,
It's 28,171.
yeah,
So that includes all your administrators and
yeah,
support
teacher staff,
Jennifer.
yep, and
So
admin.
if the round number is 28,000, 4% would equate to approximately 14,000. I mean, we can get the exact number, but
Yeah.
and typically we've made those recommendations to the board, and then adjustments have been made. They can be made if the warrant hasn't been published, or they can be made on the floor at town meeting.
Yep. Thank you. Other business. I'd like to discuss the calendar.
Well, we have one of the experts, Dr. Meltzer, here, so and we're happy to take any questions. But Mike has been intimately involved. I would just say quickly, Jennifer, we had a discussion last night, and I hope people know that we were listening to the feedback, and that it's important that whatever the board ultimately decides, that people know we're going to continue to take the feedback and try to do what's best for our kids and all our schools.
Yeah. Mike?
Yes, at the meeting last night, the calendar was shared based on the feedback and what you heard. And I think Heather wanted local boards, just sort of if there were any other further questions prior to the May meeting, that we could talk about those here at our local meeting.
Yeah.
One of the things that was discussed as a reminder, and Julie sort of brought that up, was the fact that last year before COVID, we were working on experiment. We had 4 within the calendar early releases to work on those areas of collaboration within our school on those days, and then that got interrupted. And we did our feedback and our due diligence with the surveys and looking at it, and as folks said last night, sort of listening to the feedback from parents and from staff, and making the change to moving it to a Friday, and then going to once a month, so that we can sort of work this out and then see how it goes. It was a lot of work. We listened to the feedback. I think that's the most important thing, and I think we have something that we could move forward with.
Excellent. Anybody else want to have anything to say on the calendar? Okay, is there anybody else have any other business? Okay, seeing none. Next regular meeting is Tuesday, May 11th at 4:30. Future agenda items, nomination and election of probationary teachers. Is there anything else? Julie?
I hesitate to say things like this, but the AOS requires that each local board approve Bar Harbor as the fiscal agent for the K-8 schools, and that the board review and approve of the use of federal funds in ways that correspond to the needs assessment that's being done at the school level. So one of those will happen in May, the vote on the fiscal agent and in the sort of broad outline of the plan. And then we'll have a more detailed local plan in June.
Okay, did you get that for the, thanks, Mike. Anybody else have anything for agenda?
And I would just as a reminder, and we've done that for a number of years, part of the, that process of,
Yeah.
of managing.
Yep.
Paperwork.
And if that's it, I will take a motion for adjournment.
I have one question real quickly. Did we
Yes.
have get COVID relief funds that we were getting and spending?
Mark?
So, Aaron, great question, and we can provide a complete reconciliation. The short answer is yes. And the first round, Michael, jump in if I misspeak. It's a little complex, but the first round, and actually, you may have heard COVID relief funds come into public schools. They went directly to the schools and the principals. Nancy and I had zero access or didn't have really any input to those. Those went directly to the schools to support teachers and students at the building level. There's also been some support through federal funds, and Julie works with our teachers and our principals. So we can provide a detailed overview of that. And there probably will be more funds coming, Aaron. That's kind of a broad answer. We can drill down further, but it's not a question. It's a question that's come up at other boards. So I don't know how much detail you want at this time, but we could prepare a report or an overview for the May meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, I was just curious, and then how we were allowed to spend it, or what,
Yep.
what.
So
what we
Julie
could do
can
with the
jump
money.
in too and probably give you some details. And Michael can also share, but go ahead, guys.
Go ahead, Julie, your hand was up first.
Okay, so there have been 4 rounds of funds. 2 of them are called ESSER funds. Those have come to the district, and we've used them to collaboratively address needs that we've seen, including needs at Trenton. And we have really used those to, we've used those to mutually get a better price on technology across the district. We've used that to fill in so that we could make sure that there was some more technology support. These are things that are not already in budgets. You're not allowed to supplant anything that's already in the budgets. And they're relatively small, although very welcome amounts of money. And there were slightly larger pots of money, 2 of them, that went directly to the schools. Those were extremely restricted in terms of what it could be used for. Some of those were things like PPE. Some of those like outdoor classroom, getting furniture, and basically anything that you could directly correspond to opening to as close to 5 days a week as you can. That was the premise behind those CRF, the Corona Relief Funds. And so each school, and Mike can jump in, but each school had to come up with a very quick, well-justified plan, none of which could supplant anything that was already going to be paid for in the regular school budget or had been paid for in the past. So I don't know if you want to say anything else, Mike.
Yeah, and I think, and I've already have a document that I have started. So, if that's something we want to do in May, to sort of share some of the places where the money went. And we've talked a little bit about it at previous board meetings. But there were the 2 rounds, the CRF1 and CRF2, both required you to sort of list the things you were going to spend money on in very specific categories. And you also had a limited time to spend it. I think it was the end of December, and you had to have everything on site by the end of December as well. And so,
Right. I remember that.
Trying to work on ventilation systems or something that are COVID related, you're lucky if you're going to be able to find somebody to do that work within that time frame to be able to get some of those things done. But each principal worked diligently within their school to find areas where they can focus on things that were needed because of COVID, and whether that was computers or devices to allow teachers to do a better job. If they had to go remote, to storage, and as Julie said, for furniture, support for a nurse. That was part of it for for us. And of course, PPE, buying more supplies because you had to have kids have individual materials, and that you couldn't do the sharing. So that was another area. Communication. So there was a broad area, but I could definitely share more, and I've already started that document if this came up.
Thank you.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Then I will entertain an adjournment motion at 5:34.
I move we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor? Okay, it was approved 5-0. Thank you, everybody.